With the 2023 season officially done and over with, it's time to look forward to the NFL draft because that's the next thing the Vikings actually get to participate in. We're not in the playoffs. We're just kind of sitting here waiting for a chance to select our first overall pick, in which we have the 11th overall pick in this year's draft, which hopefully we don't trade out of because Kwesi Adofo-Mensah did that just a couple years ago, in which, led the Detroit Lions to select Jamison Williams, who is starting to find his own, starting to find his footing, looking pretty decent. And then we don't get Kyle Hamilton. Instead, we draft Lewis Seen, who really hasn't seen the field at all. He was a healthy scratch in 8 of 17 games this season. That is not a good look for a first-round pick, especially the first one under the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah era. So we're all speculating what the Vikings might do this season with their first or the 11th overall pick in the draft. And most of us are assuming that the Minnesota Vikings are going to take a quarterback because that'd be the smartest thing. We really don't know what is going to happen with Kirk Cousins yet at this time. All signs are kind of pointing towards, maybe him coming back to Minnesota at least for a year, maybe 2 years, because Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said that his intention is to have Kirk Cousins back with the Vikings next season. He really didn't say much more other than next season, right? So a lot of us are saying, got to draft a quarterback. And if you're not saying draft a quarterback, you're saying defensive line, defensive back, maybe an offensive lineman, who knows, right? But for me, I'm saying, hey, we have the 11th overall pick. We have a chance to select one of the top tier quarterbacks in this year's draft, which there's a handful of those. Like we got, Caleb Williams, who's arguably going to go in the top 5. Drake May, same situation. But you're looking at a Michael Penix, a J.J. McCarthy, a Jaden Daniels. I mean, there's options in this year's draft for us to take our potential future quarterback. And there's one speculation going around that the Vikings might be aggressive in this year's draft, which would be great. That means maybe possibly trading up to get the guy we really want, because last year was, well, we'll get right into it. Before we do that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It'd be much appreciated. So, leading up to the 2023 NFL Draft last year, NFL Media's Ian Rappaport mentioned the Vikings as a team that could potentially attempt to trade up in the first round if former Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson made it past the first 4 selections. Now, Richardson, of course, was not available after the first 4 picks of last year's draft, as he was selected 4th overall by the Indianapolis Colts. Despite the fact that the young quarterback didn't get past pick number 4, apparently, the Vikings still made an attempt to trade up and select the former Florida signal caller. I guess there was a couple first-rounders involved in that. We were really trying to get up there to get Anthony Richardson. Looking back on it now, thank goodness we didn't, because it seems like he's going to get injured basically every game he plays. So we kind of avoided disaster, I think, in that situation. But during a recent appearance on the Amina Kimes show featuring Lenny podcast, the Films Room, Brett Coleman shared the following info about Minnesota's attempt to trade up during the first round of last year's NFL draft. Here's what he said. I don't think people realize how hard the Vikings tried to trade up for Anthony Richardson last year. The haul that they put on the table was massive. They were going to give away the entire farm and all the cows, all of it. They were going to give everything to get Anthony Richardson. If you haven't seen it, go search it up. It is bonkers what the Vikings were trying to trade to get Anthony Richardson. But Coleman went on to share that the Vikings trade attempt fell through because the team they were talking to felt Minnesota was going to be too good in 2023, and they didn't want their newly acquired draft picks to be slotted at the back end of each round. Now, all of this was shared in a conversation about the Los Angeles Chargers and how they might be willing to trade with a team in the 2024 draft, like the Vikings, that could be interested in moving up in the first round to select one of the top quarterback prospects. Coleman mentioned former LSU quarterback and 2023 Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels as someone Minnesota could potentially be interested in trading up for this year, which, from a lot of experts, Jaden Daniels is the most NFL-ready quarterback. Okay, that's experts saying that, not me. All right, I think he could be. I'm not 100% sure. Haven't really watched him at all. I'll go look at his highlights once we get closer to draft time. But with the loss to the Detroit Lions on Sunday, the Vikings could end up with a pick inside the top 10 of the first round this season. We didn't. We got the pick number 11. All right. Now, if this happens, it sounds like Minnesota wouldn't be afraid to attempt to trade up to get one of those top passing prospects. Still being at 11 would still maybe persuade Minnesota to trade up because we're a little far back. Who knows if one of those quarterbacks aren't available, the guy that we want. So maybe we'd be aggressive. Now, could this be the year the Vikings wind up selecting a quarterback in the first round for the first time since 2014? I say yes, it has to be a quarterback just because of the uncertainty of Kirk Cousins, how long he's going to be here, and we have to be ready for the future. Jaren Hall isn't it. Sorry to burst your bubble. If you like Jaren Hall, good for you, but he's not a starting caliber quarterback in the National Football League. Nick Mullins, he isn't either. Josh Dobbs, he isn't either. We have got to find the future quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. That is after Kirk Cousins era, right? We have to do that. And what better way to do it this year when we know there's a good quarterback class with at least five top prospects waiting to be selected. And if we can trade up, not too far, like if we can get the 8th pick from Atlanta, that's not going to happen. But if we can get the 9th pick or even like the 7th pick, jump in front of Atlanta, take Jaden Daniels, who has been linked to Atlanta, even Michael Penix, I would be ecstatic. I'd be pumped up. I think that's what the Vikings need to do. We've talked about it, right? Sign Kirk Cousins to a year or 2-year deal. Don't give him fully guaranteed money. Give him like 34 and a half, fully guaranteed, half his contract or whatever it is, and select a quarterback. Allow that quarterback to learn the system under Kirk Cousins and learn the system under Kevin O'Connell. Let him learn the offense. Build that chemistry, and then send him to the Wolves. Don't just let Kirk Cousins go, draft a rookie quarterback, and expect things to go fantastic, like C.J. Stroud, because that never happens. That's rare. That is very, very rare that happens. The smartest thing for the Minnesota Vikings will be to sign Kirk Cousins to a 1 or 2 year deal, draft a rookie quarterback by trading up, and if you don't have to trade up, select one at number 11 and let him learn. Let him learn. But the Minnesota Vikings could be aggressive on draft day. That is what I would say to expect for this year's 2024 NFL Draft. So you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, what you want the Vikings to do with that 11th pick. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of your night, folks, and Skol Vikes.